I must say I'm really impressed by this conference. I already told the guys before it started already I was addressed by completely different people about this conference, and I really think you're contributing to this movement in a very important way. So I'm very grateful. And I'm also very grateful that I can speak now after my first two speakers, because you addressed a lot of the issues which were important for us doing our project, and I rather want to focus on what I learned within the last years looking at open source or even non-profit initiatives to support this movement. As said, my name is Reto, I'm a professor, and I'm very proud because actually on the slides of Knowledge, one of my students' projects, a project of one of my students was there, the clock, maybe you have seen it. So we do a lot of physical interaction design, I'm at the University in Potsdam, and so I teach and do a lot of research there, and at the same time I'm also running an agency called IXDS, which is basically we help large corporations in understanding which opportunities are around. Actually, we started as a pure hardware, well, at that time we would rather have called it maybe physical interaction design company. We were very much like Daniel Düsentrieb, whom you might know, I don't know what's his English name, but inventive, open-minded, and we learned over time that it's becoming, that our field becomes more and more something we call service design. We learned over time that, that Internet of Things, hardware is maybe one touch point in a bigger experience, and that you have to understand this experience, and then maybe there is a sense that your washing machine is connected. Or maybe the connected car only makes sense once you think about new car sharing models or something like that. So we realized that it's more than just a technical experience you're providing, it is really integrated into the life of the people, and so that's why this process of innovating there became really complex, and we had to build up quite a big team, mixed of engineers and designers and user researchers and business people, etc. But this is not what I'm going to talk about today. What I will be talking about is what we learned with Fritzing. Fritzing is one of the older members of this whole family of tools helping to give creative people access to complex technologies. Here's the logo, our new logo, by the way. Fritzing, we started like this. We had a project. As I said, when we were basically inventing new interaction paradigms. The Wii was just out, and iPhone was not out yet, and we built a remote control which you basically could hold in space, and it will recognize whether it's rather in we call it the relax mode, so like a traditional remote control, or whether you turn it up 90 degrees and then you're in the setup mode for a more complex TV experience. And we built a prototype out of this, and then a prototype which most of you I think know, and then we wanted to have a PCB, and we realized that the step from prototype to a PCB is a horrible one. It is unbelievable. The very few freelance electrical engineers at that time, I mean that's 7 years ago, were working with freelance engineers who have a skill which is extremely seldom. It's not always fun, let's put it this way. It is, one engineer disappeared into holidays and didn't even say that he leaves for 3 months in the middle of the project, and then he was using a proprietary software, so the next engineer, which actually had only to change very little things, had to redesign the entire board from scratch because there is no common standard. The software is so complicated and cost, the cheaper version of these two softwares was $30,000. So we were not able to say, well, it's just 2-3 little mistakes, let's fix them. We know exactly what this thing should be doing because we built the prototype. No, that was not possible. And that made us come up with this idea to invent a tool which allows non-engineers, which allows tinkerers and hackers to build their own PCB and to come from a prototype to a product. So just to give you a quick walkthrough, you have basically, this is the core part, you have the breadboard view. So that's the view, hands-on people know when they deal with electronics. When they build, my students, when they build twittering plants, that's how they build them. So it's really, it works, and we are really excited it works, and now we just need a PCB out of that. And so we designed this view, and we put a lot of effort to make it look nice, and to have really nice parts, nice components. We have a huge part library now in the meantime, and it's really helpful because it's a lot of designers and creative people using it, so it should be fun to use it. Whoops. And then we have the engineering view, of course, so if you need to talk to an engineer, you can now talk to him on the same level. So it's the same language, and actually you can manipulate in any view. And then you have the PCB view, and that was a very big step forward because current EDA is the class of software we are in, electronic design automation software. They have square PCBs and that's it. You cannot even make shapes yourself, you cannot add visuals on it, etc. And so that's what we then did. So we allowed people to work with PCB as they would as a designer, and then they can even produce it. And then when we started, we had a group of people, including the Arduino founders, some other professors, and the engineers in this group of people, they said it would be impossible that a non-engineer will ever order a PCB. And today it's possible, and it's really easy, and it became well, let's say, it is kind of easy. There is a lot which can be done much easier, but it is kind of easy. So and that was actually really a big step to be able to do so, and to offer this kind of system. And of course including, and we heard of this, it's not just the software, it's also the community, and I mean, I'm happy that the two speakers before me elaborated on this. We are heavily depending on our community. They helped us understanding what the product should be looking like. They actually helped us in part, I will talk about this later. You can put your project up into our website. You can, and where there's tons of projects, and some of the projects are rather helping people, so, oh man, I have no idea how to connect a DC motor controller, and I'm really bored, I just want to have the motor running. So you can look up a project like this, and then there's a lot of inspiring projects which you can rebuild and maybe, yeah, work it out. So, and just to finish my little introduction to Fritzing, we have been a research project for 2 years, and then since 5 years we are basically self-funded. First, in the first years through the agency, and since a couple of 1-2 years we have 2 income sources. One is our kit. So if you want to learn electronic, this is the best kit out. The designer Stefan is actually here. He has been working for nearly 9 months, based on lots of teaching experience, based on our first kit we had. So it's a really nice kit to learn electronics. And the other one is the PCB production. And that's a really interesting dialogue we are having with our users, because then they submit their PCB and then we produce them, and then sometimes we have really interesting stories, interesting shapes, so there are really people use it. Some guy, for example, did a PCB as a Zahnrad, as a gear. That was quite a great idea, I saw. Another guy called us prior, well, can I come and pick them up and pay cash? We, why not? And it turned out, and I mean, this is maybe also sometimes we forget in the Tinker scene, this was a guy who runs coin-operated pawn watching booth, and he wanted to increase the number of programs you can watch from 16 to 32, so he had to change the dial. And it's like, oh wow, that's what people do with our tool. Exactly, but I don't want to elaborate on the visions we have, and I'm completely d'accord with the 2 speakers before. We really are in an exciting time, and I think tools will be the key for innovation. Though, if tools become easier, you will see much more things happening, and we saw this in graphic design, we saw this in the web, and tools are the key. What I want to talk about, because that's the subject, open source, and in our case, open source and non-profit. Because we started as a research project, we decided to found a non-profit organization to maintain this. And I think it's wonderful to be open source. I can tell you, people love you, they say thank you to you, they pat your shoulders, actually they invite you all over the place. We were in many countries, giving talks, giving workshops at universities. The most exciting was in Umeå, northern Sweden, where it was basically dark all the time while we were there, and so on. So that's quite interesting. People are offering their help and want to work with you. People praise you and so on. So it's a nice feeling to be an open source guy. It is actually also, besides the personal warm shower you get, it's also nice because you get a lot of trust. I mean, you are somebody who makes clear you want to help, so the press writes about you in a different sense, and it's easier to approach potential partners. But there is also, and what is also nice, we heard it was the Ultimaker, and people are starting making their own living based on your tool. We were enormously proud when Google Alerts showed us the first guy putting in his CV that he knows how to use Fritzing. And there's a lot of people really doing projects, artists, but also teachers, a lot of writers use our diagrams to publish books, etc. So that's really nice to see that you're actually really helping. Nice has a little danger in it, you know, because, and that's what our situation is right now. So one morning you wake up and all of a sudden you see that commercial companies are looking into this field with massive investment in the back and really a very high speed. And they take what you learned and now go with that learning, of course, and see what's happening. So a lot of the areas I just showed to you, for example, the nice breadboard view has been now copied by a company owned by Autodesk. And it's like, wow, Autodesk, why did they not even approach us? No, they just copy it, and it's, of course, for us, it's a shocker. The kit, we were the first with a really nice starter kit. All of a sudden, Arduino itself, we bought the Arduinos with them, so they saw how many we sold, so they thought, that might be quite an interesting business, so let's do our own starter kit. So, now all of a sudden this area of business becomes a challenge. PCB production, Chinese companies are now really aggressively offering on different scales PCB production, so okay, they are still not understanding that they are normal people who want to produce PCBs. They are mostly targeting engineers, so that's not so dangerous. But you see that this momentum is changing, and I have a theory I'd like to share and discuss because I'm not sure, but I have a theory that that open source people have to be a little careful, and I want to share this learnings very open and frankly with you and hear what you think about it. But there's three dangers I see when you work in open source and non-profit. And one is that you forget to value your own time and skills. You see this often with religious people. I mean, they go to Africa or went, I mean today it's not necessary, to do missionaries there and really risk their life, etc. Due to an idea they had. And similar to this, I mean, we worked really hard over years with very, very little income because we were the good guys. And you sometimes in this role, you forget that the time you're investing there is really something valuable, and that you should not forget that your health. Actually, one of our colleagues we worked really hard and got slipped Bandscheibenvorfall, slipped disc, thank you, sorry, I looked it up and now I forgot. So you really have to put your own value into the perspective of what you're doing there. And maybe 1 year, 2 years is fine to invest, but then also you have to think, well, how is this going? And you may not forget about this. But even more important is really, you have to learn from what pro-business or for-profit companies are doing. And in our case, for example, let me tell you a little example. In our case, we wanted to be the good guys so hard that, for example, we never asked people to register to use our software. So in any, I mean, Matas from SoundCloud is coaching us a little bit. In any cloud-based business, the dialogue with your customers is the key. And we felt, no, this is this is part of the bad guys thing, for open source, we should not force people to register. And so we still have about 1,000 to 2,000 downloads a day, but basically we don't really know who they are, and we are not in contact with them. And I think we should have learned much more for business companies to use tools to be more prepared for what's happening there. And I think this is definitely something which we haven't had looked at. The same is, by the way, true for open source. I thought when we started, hey, open source, we will have tons of people contributing to our code, and we will have, I don't know, what will we do anyways when all these people are contributing? Well, it turned out that first of all, our customers are tinkerers, so they are not software guys, so they have basically not in the traditional open source Linux system, for example, where they work with the tool they are actually using and they can themselves change the tool. Our customers are not software engineers, so they can't change their own tool. So we should have thought much bigger, much more about why do we do open source and how can we engage people in supporting us with the skill set and the needs they have. So we have a parts editor. This is so people can contribute parts. But for example, we developed this part editor very late and it's still quite complicated to use. So we haven't thought about that too much. And I think that's one other lessons learned I'd like to share. And the next one is, no, that's the one I meant. Sorry, I forgot to press. And the last one is really, I think it relates again to the good guy thing. You think you're so right and you're so good that you sometimes forget your own mission, and that you sometimes forget to ask whether you're still on the right track. And I can ask this on many levels, and I have the feeling that we a little bit forgot about that, to ask this question, because so many people said, yeah, that's so great what you're doing, that we forgot to say, well, is this still a model of maker which is there? For example, do people really still want to know what a resistor is? Don't they want to maybe, are we addressing the app developing community, etc.? Is my time running off? Okay, I'm leaving that anyway. So, is the app community being integrated into this tool, for example? That's one big question I'm working on right now, to think, well, we have tons of app developers, but somehow we don't give them a bridge into the Internet of Things. And is this the right tool? I'm not so sure, for example. But anyway, so I wanted to share them, and let's discuss them tonight with the beers or now. What we did now, just to give you an outlook or to involve you a little bit, we want to learn more, be closer with you. So first of all, our community and our project gallery, we want to increase this, and we want to invite you to, we have a new button, it's just this one.
Register.
This is not but it's a big step for us, so you can order projects directly. So now you order the PCB, and we're just talking to some vendors of electronic components. So next step would be to order the PCB with all parts in it. So far our model was always somebody invents something and orders the PCB and sells them himself. And now I think this is quite an important step, because maybe ideas can very early on be evaluated as kits. We want to do so from prototype through kits to product. And I think kit could be the lean equivalent of a hardware, of an electronic hardware. I think that could be quite interesting, because the community looking at this and getting inspired is really big. And if they order 10 of your things and solder them themselves, you might invite you to contact me or contact the team if you have an idea and you don't know how to proceed, because we want to better understand how we can help there. And I really believe we are in a very exciting area, and I would be very happy to continue this discussion with all of you. Thank you.